Hello everyone, this is Matt Heisey with the College Funding Connection, and today we're going to be looking at some cost estimates and a cost review for Northwestern University. You probably came across our video on YouTube or Google, and we have a series of videos we're doing on various colleges and universities. But we think it's a good idea for families to plan as early as possible. We are a professional planning firm, financial aid planning and college preparatory company. And one of the big things we talk about with families a lot is understanding the numbers, understanding your numbers specifically. What kind of financial aid can you anticipate for various schools, and then whether or not it's affordable for your family, and then certainly how you're going to pay for it. So Northwestern is our focus in this video. And our company, again, is the College Funding Connection. We're headquartered in Northeast Ohio, just south of Cleveland, but we actually work with clients all over the United States. And here's some contact information. Our website is at collegefc.com, and feel free to check that out. A lot of good information and resources there as well. So before we look at the numbers for Northwestern specifically, I wanted to just kind of cover the basics again. You may have seen some of this before or are familiar with the terminology, but really the basis, the foundation for effective college planning is understanding your family's expected family contribution, also known as the EFC. And this is a product of a formula. FAFSA specifically. And before you are eligible or can become eligible for financial aid at most schools, you do have to complete financial aid applications. The application then is included in that as a calculation or a formula that they use based on the variables and information they gather from you. And then it comes out with this number, and that's what the schools start with when they're putting together a financial aid package for you. But it's the portion of your income and assets that you'll be expected to contribute towards the costs of college. And the EFC is determined in a few different ways, primarily by FAFSA, which is the federal application for, or free application for federal student aid. And this is used or administered by the Department of Education. So it is a federal document. You have to make sure you're being entirely honest and accurate, as accurate as possible on that. But then a lot of private colleges and universities use a couple other methods. The profile method, which has been around for a long time, and a relatively new process called a consensus. And a smaller group of the larger, more elite private universities in the country kind of created their own process and some consistency in determining financial aid eligibility for students. But regardless of what they're using, they're normally looking at that base year prior to applying for financial aid. So if you are a senior in high school this year and applying for financial aid or did apply for financial aid here recently, then they're looking at the most recent tax year, which would have been last year from the student's junior year of high school through their December of their senior year. So the most recent tax year is what they're looking at, also known as the base year for financial aid. And then when we talk about financial aid, we really want to find out what that financial need number is. And the need is determined by taking the cost of attendance, or let's just call it the retail price for the college, subtracting your family's EFC, or your expected family contribution, and then that will provide us with a financial need number. And that's exactly what the colleges are doing as a starting point for your family, and then they have to determine how much of that need they're actually going to cover in some form of financial aid. Maybe it's need-based or possibly merit-based financial aid. So let's take a look at some more specific numbers for Northwestern. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at one of the calculators that we use as we're running numbers or cost estimates for families. And I'm just using a case study. We're going to call it the sample family. And Joey's sample is the student that we're looking at. So these are all the variables and sections that we have to complete as we're running these estimates. And most of them are actually kind of mirroring what is requested on the FAFSA and some of the other financial aid applications. So we always start with academics, because keep in mind that financial aid oftentimes is a combination of need-based aid but also merit aid. So some financial aid may be based exclusively on financial need, your family's finances and ability to pay. The other may be merit aid, which is really based more on the student's academic credentials or abilities. So here we're looking at the academics, but academics is also important because it helps us select relevant choices. We don't want to overshoot the mark or undershoot the mark for potential colleges without having a really good understanding about what the colleges are expecting, it's kind of hard to know which colleges to really pursue. So here for Joey, just going to run through the numbers. I kind of pre-filled the different fields in here. But Joey took both tests, but on the ACT he did a little bit better. You can see here we can use the SAT or the ACT. So he got a 29 on the ACT, which is pretty good. He's a 4.0 student in high school. And then as far as class rank, he's in the top 10% of his class. So that's what we indicated there. Now, when we talk about financial aid for your college-bound student, we can't forget that younger siblings are actually included in the calculation. So as a parent and as a family, they're really looking at the whole picture for your family. As parents, do you have any other dependents? Do you have any other kids that are in college? That can make a big difference for financial aid. So we don't want to discount any of those questions because all of them are very relevant and can be very important. And all of them, or many of them, can actually save you money in the long run. So we always want to try to capture that. So here we have Joey, who's an only child, so he's the only one in college. We can pick any state in the country, but I'm in Ohio, so I'm just going to use that for now. The next section deals with parents' finances. Now, remember that your kids are really tied to you very closely during the undergraduate college years for financial aid. That schools will require that mom and dad put their financial aid information on the application along with the student. So there's really very few instances where you can get away from that. And remember, it's a federal document, so just like IRS forms or any other federal application, you kind of just have to go along with what they're asking for. So for Mr. and Mrs. Sample, they're both working. They filed jointly for taxes, make about $100,000 per year. And then kind of a little backstory here. Mrs. Sample's father passed away, so the grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, left his daughter a couple $100,000 from his estate. So right now they received that, and it's sitting in let's just call it a savings account for now. They've paid their house down a little bit, so they have about $50,000 in equity in their home, and some schools will actually look at that. Some schools look at business assets, but they're not self-employed, so we'll leave that blank. And then they contributed about $3,000 to their 401k plan. We then have the students' finances, so these are for Joey. Joey didn't have any kind of part-time job or seasonal job, so it's zero. He did get some money from Grandpa, though, when he passed away. So Grandpa left him $20,000 for college, so we see that right there. And then Mom and Dad funded a 529 plan for Joey, so that money's sitting there as well. So the next section then is affordability. So again, if you don't have a good idea, today we're looking at Northwestern, but if you don't know, that's okay. We have various screening tools where we can kind of screen out or select certain schools based on how affordable they might be for the family, based on what we know as far as the financial aid numbers for the colleges individually. So that's this section. We'll kind of skip through that. Other search options as far as their chances of enrollment at a school and, location or geography. So then we get to the colleges section, and we already know we're going to look at Northwestern. So we just went ahead and keyed in a few schools, and I put in Emory and Bucknell just for comparison's sake today. But you can see here, even for just Ohio, we have hundreds of schools, or dozens, and then we can go through pretty much any state in the country. So then if we save this, it's going to take us over to our college report. So here we see Northwestern right in the middle, and then the other two schools, Emory and Bucknell, that we threw in there. And you can see as far as the likelihood of Joey getting into these schools, it's likely that he would. These are reasonable choices for Joey. You can see the financial aid method or application method that they're using. So Emory and Northwestern use the consensus method, whereas Bucknell just kind of sticks with the old institutional method. We then see the college costs. So they're pretty similar, ranging from $54 to $56. Northwestern's actually the most expensive here at $59,322. And then the expected family contribution. So we do see a difference between the consensus number and the institutional. The consensus number is about $26,000, where the institutional is about $34,000. And then if we remember the calculation, we take the cost of the college, subtract out the family contribution, and we then have the need. So this is kind of the starting point for the school. How much aid is the family eligible for? Now, the good news is that Northwestern covers 100% of whatever the family is eligible for, and I do know that a good portion of what they provide for the family is free money in the form of grants and or maybe scholarships, but usually grant money. So the estimated aid then for Northwestern is about $35,000. but there still is a net cost of about $24,000. So regardless of how good the financial aid package might look like or how good it might be, it hardly ever is free. So there is usually something that the family has to come up with, and in this case, it's about $24,000 right now. But tell you what, I think this is a little bit high. I think there's some things that Mr. or Mrs. Sample and Joey can do to bring that number down considerably to reduce the out-of-pocket expense for their family. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to jump right over to parents' finances. And if you remember the backstory here, with Grandpa passing away a couple of years ago and leaving $200,000 to Mrs. Sample, I can tell you now, and I've been doing this for over 10 years, that the schools are going to look at this very closely. It's going to be like a red flag. They're going to say, well, wait a minute, you have $200,000 here, so spend some of that first, and then we'll consider more financial aid for you. But what if you could do this? What if we could take a zero off and change it from $200,000 to $20,000? And in doing that, we're not suggesting that you just go out and blow $180,000. God forbid you do that. But there are ways to reposition the money and essentially shelter it. So put it in a location that the colleges are not looking at, but at the same time, you don't want to give up what you have now. Liquidity, maybe some growth on your money, that type of thing. So there are methods available, believe it or not, where you can shelter the money very effectively. And that way, keep it off the books or off the application for financial aid and do it in a perfectly legal fashion. It's basically asset sheltering or repositioning. So let's pretend we did that for now. I'm going to save my work. So now they have $20,000 showing up instead of $200,000. And then the same thing for Joey. Remember, he got $20,000 from Grandpa for college. And we don't like this because we know the schools are going to assess that at about 20%. It's going to just that portion probably will create about a $4,000 hit on Joey's financial aid numbers, meaning it's going to cost him that much more out of pocket. So we want to make sure that the schools don't see that. So we're going to change it to zero. So again, not spending it, but repositioning it as best as we can. So I'm going to save that too. We're going to go back here. And if you remember, we were at $24,000 as an out-of-pocket expense for the Sample family. And look here, you can see for Northwestern, we now brought it down to $14,000, $14,257 to be exact. And if you remember before, it was at $24,000, so we brought it down by $10,000. And keep in mind that that is per year. So what we have effectively done, just through smart planning in advance before you apply for financial aid, in this case for the Sample family, we basically are putting our better financial foot forward, saving $10,000 per year or $40,000 over 4 years. And just think what you could do with $40,000 rather than unintentionally donating it to the school. Why not keep it in your own pocket and then maybe use it to give to Joey after college, or it could be used to pay off debts, retirement savings, certainly something other than just giving it to the college unnecessarily. So let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation and we'll finish up. Okay, so what are some of the next steps if you want to learn more about what's possible for your family? Well, if you've seen any of our videos or programs before, you know that we do offer a free 1-hour, no obligation consultation for anybody that participates in our educational programs. So this is one of those items or educational pieces that we do. We just want to make sure people are familiar with some of the vocabulary and information before we actually sit down or before we talk with you on the telephone. So we do offer that to anybody. If you are interested in doing this, and we can look at Northwestern, we can look at pretty much any school in the country, be happy to talk through the numbers with you. And then what we can do then is let you know if there's anything we can do to help your family beyond that point. Sometimes we can, but a lot of times we cannot. So it just depends on the circumstances, but we can let you know and let you know more specifically what's possible for you. But if you want to do that, here's our copy of our link website below. The website is www.collegefc.com, and then the contact page is /contact us. That'll take you right there. But even better yet, if you go right below the screen here, you will notice in the description page a link directly to this page. So all you have to do is click on it, type in your contact info, we'll get in touch with you ASAP, and then we'll find a time that's convenient for you and for us to talk for about a half an hour to an hour and discuss some of these numbers with you more specifically. When you do sign up for a consultation, we'll also include you in our mailing list, and you can unsubscribe to that if you want at some point, but most people don't. A lot of good free information for you as parents and for a student in your home. But we will provide you with a copy of our monthly newsletter, which is free. And then another free resource, student resource, is the Student Roadmap to Success. So if you do have a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, this is a great kind of step-by-step guide for them. It's absolutely free. Gives them a nice overview and timeline of what they should be doing at different points in high school. So hope you opt into that. And again, the consultation information, you can key that in there as well, and we'll be in touch with you to set up a time to meet. So hopefully this was helpful for you for Northwestern. Thank you for watching our video today. And until next time we talk, best of luck with your college planning.